going on, guys? Alright, so maybe you want to learn how to make a leather pouch, or what about some sort of form-fit leather sheath, or what about even a full-size sheath for a nice fixed blade knife? Well, I've gotten a lot of requests on how to make certain items as well as the tools that might be needed to accomplish these goals. But I think before we get into a how-to video, I think we need to talk about the tools that you're going to need, the tools that will absolutely be a necessity, and the tools that will certainly make your life a lot easier. So stay with me, and I'm going to show you some of these tools. Alright, now before you can make something like this, I strongly recommend that you get these right here. This is nothing more than a cutting mat, and they can be purchased at Walmart in the hobby section, as well as Hobby Lobby in the arts section, as well as Michael's. They're not that expensive. I think this one was roughly about $11, and these things are great. When you cut through your leather, you certainly want to be gentle on the blade. If you're cutting into wood, or something along those lines, you're going to find that you're going to dull your blade a little bit faster. So like I said, I would definitely strongly recommend getting one of these cutting mats. Okay, and of course you're going to need some leather. Now, make sure that you invest a little bit of money and get some good quality leather. This here is 9-ounce leather. You don't have to use 9-ounce. It's more of a preference. I choose to use 9-ounce when it comes to my heavier duty fixed blades. But when it comes to something like a pouch or something, I typically use about a 7-ounce leather, something a little bit lighter, something that will fold just a little bit easier. Now, when you pick out your leather, look for big scar marks like this. You want to try to avoid really large scars like that, because you can see that it's going to split and crack your leather. You're not going to really be able to avoid that. I mean, animals getting barbed wire, thorns, things like that. So you're not really going to be able to avoid that, but you can still watch out for, large scars. Some people prefer to have a little bit of scars on their leather goods because it just, quite frankly, it gives it character. Now, when you pick it out, also, take a look at the flush side. Make sure that it's in pretty good shape also. But just remember that if the leather you're working with doesn't look good, then you're certainly not going to come out with a sheath that looks decent. And quite frankly, if you don't like the looks of your sheath, well, nobody else is going to really like it neither. Now, another thing is just a cutting tool. You don't have to get fancy with this. You don't have to invest in a really expensive $70, $80 leather trimming knife. You can get, a utility knife like this. Relatively inexpensive. The downside is that you're going to have to change out the blades. If you do choose to go this route, if you do choose to invest in a fixed blade, leather trimming knife, then you can just simply rehone it and you're good to go. Certainly do not skip out on changing your blades. Change them often. Make sure that they are good and sharp, or definitely rehone your leather trimming knife quite often. That way you can cut through this thicker leather relatively easy with just a couple passes. Now, when it comes to hardware, definitely don't go cheap. Get good quality stuff when it comes to the snaps, or the little rivets, and certainly your Chicago screws. Now, you're definitely going to have to buy a snap setter for your snaps. And these snap setters, you can get fancy and get presses and all that good stuff, but you at least need to have one of these little anvils that they typically come with. Now, the back side of my snaps, I really don't use those because I have found that if you do set it on there, you go to hit it, sometimes it can slide off, and it just doesn't obviously look very good if that thing's folded in half. And once you set it, there's really no going back unless you drill it out. Now, when it comes to the front side of the snap, the round side, you definitely want to use your anvil because it has a dome shape in there, and it conforms to that snap, so that way when you set it, this will not flatten out. And the same goes with rivets if you choose to use them. I try not to use these things because I have personally found that the stitching seems to be stronger than those. Some people don't necessarily believe that, but I have actually set them and ripped them apart with my hands. I cannot rip those stitches apart. I will rip the leather way before I will rip that stitch. And like I said, on your Chicago screws, definitely spend the extra few bucks and get stuff that looks good. Alright, now out of the tools that you see here, the only one, in my opinion, that is an absolute must is the awl. When you join your leather together and you go to make those holes, you're going to need something to push through all three layers. That way it all lines up perfectly. Now you can either do this by hand, pressing it through, which is going to be very, very tough, or you can use a soft rubber mallet or a wooden mallet and bang it through. Now, out of the other tools, the next most important one would be something like this. This you are going to be able to mark where your stitch holes are, and they're going to be evenly spaced. The next one that I personally think is something that's nice to have is this item here, which is an edge beveler, and all that really does is exactly what it sounds like, is it takes the edge and bevels it off like that. And I'm dropping my tools. And basically, is what that's going to do is cause that edge to round. That way when you go and you do your burnishing, it will make it look nice and finished like that there, instead of just squared off. Okay, so the next tool on your list would be this here. This is just a freehand stitch groover, and basically is what this does is it will actually put a groove in your leather, and that does two things. That is going to help you transfer even stitch holes, and when you do your stitching is actually going to lay down inside the leather or flush with the leather and prevent wear and tear. Now, the other stitch groover that I like is this one here, and you can adjust it further out or further in, and you just simply put it along the edge, and it determines the exact width of your groove. That way you can get nice, uniformed, and straight groove lines and stitch lines. And another thing is when you go to fold 9-ounce leather, you will find that it's a little difficult to fold over even when it's wet. Not necessarily difficult, but it's not really going to lay or want to lay flat. So you can have something like this, which is a V-gouge, and you simply, on your flush side, do that, and it will gouge out your leather, so that way when you fold it, it will fold over nice there. You'll do that around the spine area, so that way your sheath will fold over really, really nice. And the last item is a stylist. Now, a stylist is used for several things. One of the most important things that it's used for, or one of the things that I typically use it for, is when I take and form my leather. Something like this. I will wet the leather, and then I will take my stylist and actually form around the item, so that way it gives it a nice friction fit. You can hear it snap in, and really I just think it looks nice. And the next items you're going to need are the actual dies. Again, use nice quality dye. So you can, I prefer having something that is a very deep and rich uniformed color. In order to get that color, that look right there, is what I use, is the Fabian's brand, the professional oil dye. There are two Fabian brands that are both going to be in the exact same color. One is not going to have oil dye. The oil dye is about double the price, but you're going to get double the look. Now, this is the light brown. This was actually performed with a dark brown, so please don't get that confused. If you want a deeper, richer brown, go with a dark brown, not that light brown. Now, if you want an antique look, they also have this here. And this stuff you do not apply with a wool dauber. And I guess I forgot to mention that this stuff you're going to apply with one of these little wool daubers here. And you don't have to use a different one every time. I use the same one over and over and over again. But this stuff here, you do not apply with the wool dauber, the wool dauber. You're actually going to apply it to a scrap piece of wool. Put you a fair amount on there, and then you rub it in really good, and then wipe it off with a clean cotton towel or something along them lines. And you will actually get a finish that isn't as uniformed as this, and you'll have to forgive me because I do not have anything as an example at the moment. It's actually going to be darker in some spots, lighter in other spots. It's going to show the scarring a little bit better, things like that, and at that point it's more personal preference than anything. Alright, now this is certainly not a must, but when you're working with these dyes, it's going to stain your hands like crazy if you do not wear a pair of latex gloves. So I definitely strongly recommend wearing a pair of those unless you want your hands to be dark brown, light brown, black, whatever it may be. Now, after you work with all that, you're going to be working with actually sewing your leather as well as gluing your leather. Now some might not quite understand what the rubber cement is going to be used for, but during some of the how-to videos I will definitely show what this is used for. Now, the stuff that I like to use is this stuff here, and you can see that I'm almost out, and it's nothing more than waxed thread, I guess you would call it. It's kind of expensive, and you will find that everything when it comes to leather is expensive. It's not a cheap hobby by any means. Now, you can save more than a few bucks and do something like this, and this is nothing more than bank line, tarred bank line. This is only this one's already been broken up, but when you break these things up, it will expose 3 inner strands. One of the strands on this one has actually already been removed, but it will expose 3 inner strands, and you will be able to see that the strands are roughly the exact same size and does the exact same thing. And the bank line, you know, it might be just a bit stronger. So you want to save a few bucks? Well, like I said, more than a few bucks. Get you some bank line and break it down into 3 and go from there. Some people also prefer to use artificial sinew. I don't really use artificial sinew that much. I've found, especially like the natural color like this, after a while it tends to fade, and this stuff will actually start to look more white than this light brown or straw color, I guess I should say. So now when you go sewing your sheaths, the line or sinew, whatever it is that you choose to use, is going to really dig into your hands when you pull it tight. And after a while, it will cause your hands to get very rough, very sore. So I like to use some gloves like this that will provide just a little bit of protection from wearing your hands out, and it will also provide a decent amount of grip. Okay, now earlier I spoke of finishing your edges, and that's often referred to as burnishing. Now, in order to do that, you are going to need something to burnish your edges with. You can buy something like this. They have a little burnishing / slicking tool, wooden. If you want to go old school, you can use a deer tine, or you can get as simple as rummaging through your 4-year-old's art supplies and getting a nice little plastic pencil. They will all work. You're also going to need a wool dauber and a cup of water in order to do this, but that will be for a how-to video, and you will see all about burnishing. And here's a few other tools that you're going to find that's going to make your life a lot easier. You can get a leather hole punch that has a rotating wheel for various size holes. You can get one that you can interchange to different size holes. I also recommend that you get some clamps for when you do your rubber cementing. You can get all kinds of different clamps. You can get as simple as these little paper clips right here if you want. But when you start getting into your thicker 9-ounce leather, you'll find that that's just not really going to cut it, and you're going to need, you know, clamps that are more like this. And when it's all said and done, you are definitely going to need something to finish your leather with, something that's going to protect it from the elements, as well as put the nutrients back into it. Just give it an all-around nicer appearance. One of my personal favorites is this stuff here, the Aussie Leather Conditioner by Fabian's. This stuff has beeswax in it, so it smells really, really good. Just like I've said before, everything with leather is a little pricey, so this is, geez, I want to say this is $15 to $20, but it lasts for a very, very long time. Okay, so easy enough, right? You've got all the tools. Now it's a matter of just doing this. Now, I will warn you, like I've said 1,000 times, leather hobby is not cheap. Expect to be spending a lot of money when it comes to getting into leather. There's just really no way around it. The other thing with leather is it's very unforgiving. If you make one mistake, you are pretty much going to be starting all over again. If you make your design to fit this knife, and you make the design and it's a 1/4 of an inch too short, you just wasted all that leather. So, like I said, it's very unforgiving. So this is certainly something that if you're going to try, expect to screw up, because you're going to. I've been doing this for a while now, and I still screw up almost every single new design that I do, because I fail to recognize the slightest little detail. Some people are going to be better than that at others. Some people do this, they fly through it, no problem at all. They never screw up, never make mistakes. That is not me. Almost every single new design that I do, I will get 60-70% of the way through it, realize I've done something and I've screwed up, and end up wasting all that leather. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions on these items, where to find them or anything like that, please don't hesitate to ask. Also, give me some ideas of what you guys might want to see how to do in the future, and we will definitely go from there. So, as always guys, have a good one.